This video is not about religion, nor is it just about ancient history. It is about something much deeper, a wisdom lost in time, encoded in simple words and hidden for centuries within the pages of the Bible. Solomon, the wisest and richest man who ever lived, left a legacy. But this legacy was not an empire of precious stones. It was a spiritual and mental code, camouflaged in proverbs and sayings that few, even today, have fully deciphered. Today, this code will be revealed like never before, not as metaphor, but as a practical key to financial wisdom, self-mastery, and purposeful wealth. Together, we will access the ancient principles that link Solomon to Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich, and understand how the Bible already taught millennia ago what many are only now beginning to grasp, that faith, thought, and discipline are the true foundations of lasting prosperity. You are about to dive into something forbidden for hurried minds and revealing for those who seek more than money. What is coming is not a theory. It is a compass, aimed at those who want to build a reality where spirituality and abundance walk side by side. What you were never told about Solomon is about to emerge from the silence of the ages. Before we continue this journey of awakening and discovery, like this video, share it with those who need to hear this message, and comment below. Are you ready to decipher Solomon's lost code? Solomon didn't start from nothing. He was born heir to King David, one of the most powerful kings in Israel's history. His childhood was surrounded by wealth, servants, noble education, and the direct influence of a warrior and strategist father. From the cradle, Solomon walked the halls of power, hearing stories of conquests and divine promises. But however privileged his origins, the magnitude of the wealth he would achieve would surpass even the limits of common royalty. He could have lived merely in inherited comfort, but something inside Solomon yearned for more. Not just possessions, but understanding. He saw the throne as a mission, not just a privilege. The inheritance from King David was not just gold and influence. It was also the responsibility to lead with discernment. And this inner call connected with an eternal principle revealed centuries later by Napoleon Hill. Everything begins with a burning desire. Solomon did not settle for inheritance. He chose to grow. And here's where many get lost, thinking wealth depends only on what you receive. The real turning point is in what you choose to cultivate. Solomon's throne was built on this choice, transforming what he had into something much greater. How? The answer begins with a question asked in silence on a lonely night. And that is where the story changes forever. Like this video if this story already touched something inside you. And comment below the phrase, "I decide to transform what I received into something eternal." This moment is yours alone. A personal connection to your own journey. Solomon could have asked for anything. Power over nations, victory over enemies, a long and peaceful life, but in 1 Kings 3:9-13, he made a request that would change not only his story, but the fate of the entire kingdom. Give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. This request for wisdom, made with humility, ignited an invisible force that would attract gold, recognition, and honor from all sides. God responded generously. "Since you asked for wisdom, I will also give you riches and honor, such as no other king has had." Here we begin to see the power of the victorious mindset when the focus is on serving, on growing inwardly. Material fruits come as a consequence. Napoleon Hill would later write, "Success is built upon purpose and wisdom." Solomon did not seek wealth. He sought wisdom with purpose. And that is exactly what made him the richest man in the Bible. A leader who understood that the mind dominates matter. That before governing others, you must govern yourself. This principle is eternal. Wisdom that attracts wealth is not theoretical, it is practical. It is the kind that allows you to resolve conflicts, build alliances, and see beyond appearances. Solomon became a reference for other kings, sought by leaders wanting to understand his vision. And it all began with a simple yet profound desire. What would happen if you asked today what he asked that night? If this teaching spoke to you, like now, and write in the comments, I choose to live with wisdom that generates wealth. This is your commitment to the invisible that builds the visible after winning the people's hearts with his wisdom. Solomon expanded his influence with something even more strategic: power and respect-based political alliances. Many neighboring nations became vassal states, territories that, to maintain peace and access to ancient trade routes, paid tributes to King Solomon in gold, spices, animals, and precious stones. These alliances did not come by brute force, but by diplomatic intelligence and the impressiveness of a kingdom guided by wisdom. This model is a valuable lesson even today. In Napoleon Hill's language, Solomon applied the principle that strategic alliances create power. He formed connections where everyone won: protection in exchange for loyalty, wisdom in exchange for resources. Thus, gold did not reach him by chance, but by structure, a solid economy built on trust and position. When you build your life as a reference of value, the world also starts contributing to your prosperity. Solomon understood that whoever controls the flow of resources also controls the game. The tributes to King Solomon became constant. And while other kings spent their forces in wars, he used his wisdom to attract wealth without fighting. A living example that true power is not about shouting louder, but being the most respected. This changes everything, and it leads to something even greater. Israel's geographic position was more than luck. It was a strategic key. Located between the great empires of Africa, Arabia, Egypt, and Mesopotamia, Israel was exactly at the crossroads of the largest ancient trade routes. Solomon understood this power map and did what few kings would. He turned location into profit. He established posts, fortresses, store cities, and began to control the flow of goods crossing his territory. Anyone who wanted to pass had to pay. This control of routes was a form of invisible rent people paid to cross. Thus, Solomon multiplied the coffers without drawing swords. It was economic intelligence at its purest, a modern reflection of what Napoleon Hill would teach centuries later. Wealth is the reflection of organized thought. While many thought about the now, Solomon thought about structure, flow, and influence. He didn't want just gold. He wanted control over the path through which gold passed. And here is the great lesson. The secret is not just in making money, but in positioning yourself where the money flows. When you become part of the route, you participate in prosperity. The trade in Solomon's time was not chaotic. It was coordinated, directed, and deeply profitable. But Solomon's mind was just beginning to show what it was capable of. Solomon didn't limit himself to land. He turned his eyes to the sea. At Ezion-Geber, near the Red Sea, he established a naval base with a fleet of ships built in partnership. With Hiram of Tyre, the king of a Phoenician city, experienced in navigation. This fleet sailed unknown seas, opening routes to legendary places like Ophir, from where they returned loaded with gold, ivory, rare wood, and precious stones. It was the birth of ancient maritime trade, which transformed Israel into an international power. This decision to go beyond the obvious is a perfect example of what Napoleon Hill would call vision applied with boldness. While other kings depended on solid ground, Solomon sought riches on the horizon. He invested in what no one else dared to do. This is more than commerce. It is strategic faith. It's like in life. Those who dare to cross what seems unexplored often return carrying rewards no one else reached. Solomon's naval fleet was more than vessels. It was a symbol of what happens when biblical wisdom meets the courage to act. It took faith to build ships where there was no maritime tradition, but that was exactly what took him beyond the limits of an ordinary king. And beyond the sea, Something even more valuable awaited. Ophir, a name shrouded in mystery, almost like a living legend. No one knows exactly where it was, perhaps in East Africa, India, or Arabia. But what is known is what it represented: pure wealth, gold of the highest value, rare, refined. Solomon's ships, after long journeys, returned loaded with this treasure. Solomon and Ophir became synonyms for connection with the unreachable. And this is exactly where wisdom meets faith, when you dare to seek what the eyes cannot see. These shipments were not small. In 1 Kings 10:11, we read that the fleet brought gold, sandalwood, and precious stones from Ophir in great quantity, and gold in incalculable amounts. And this was not just trade, it was also a symbol of divine favor and strategic wisdom. Ophir was not only a physical place, it was a state of vision, the fruit of a mind that dominates matter. It was the reflection of abundance, responding to those who have the courage to go beyond. In life, we all have an Ophir, a place few know, but that holds something immensely valuable. The question is, are you building your fleet to get there? History shows us that those who move with wisdom and courage bring back riches the whole world will recognize. But there is one detail few notice: Solomon didn't just think wisely, he also tied power with invisible bonds. He understood that the most lasting political alliances were not made only with treaties, but with family ties. By marrying women from various nations, including the daughter of Pharaoh, Solomon stitched a network of alliances that brought not only diplomatic stability, but also tributes, respect, and, of course, lots of gold. Each marriage was a strategy, each princess a link of power. These political alliances mirror the principle Napoleon Hill described as strategic alliances create power. Solomon knew that kingdoms that love one another do not war. He transformed what would be just convention into a gear of prosperity. With this, he guaranteed free routes, open markets, and access to treasures others protected with swords. Wealth, therefore, was not only the fruit of spiritual wisdom, it was also relational intelligence applied to the global scenario. But there was something even deeper in these marriages. By uniting with distant peoples, Solomon became universal, and his fame spread like a warm wind in the desert. His halls received foreign perfumes, his tables, spices from faraway lands, and his coffers, tons of gold. However, one visit in particular was about to forever mark his story. Solomon's fame crossed deserts, crossed oceans, and echoed in the palaces of distant kings. Powerful rulers, intrigued by what they heard about his wisdom, came from far away just to hear him speak. And they did not come empty-handed. As recorded in 1 Kings 10:23-25. Solomon received gifts every year, objects of gold and silver, clothes, weapons, spices, horses, and mules. But none of these meetings was as remarkable as the visit of the Queen of Sheba. She traveled with a caravan full of riches, bringing about 4 tons of gold as a gift, an offering not aimed to buy anything, but to honor a man whose wisdom and wealth surpassed the ordinary. This moment shows a deep principle. When you become a center of value, the world begins to bring you the rarest treasures. As Napoleon Hill would say, success attracts what harmonizes with your vibration. These gifts were not only material, they were recognition. They were public validations of the invisible power Solomon carried, a result of the covenant with God, biblical wisdom, and the way he led. His influence did not come from imposition, but from inspiration. And every time a new delegation arrived in ancient Jerusalem loaded with treasures, they brought more than gold. They brought confirmation of a legacy being built before the eyes of the world. Solomon's kingdom was vast, but its organization was even greater. He divided responsibilities among the 12 tribes of Israel, each tasked with sustaining the palace and government for 1 month a year. This included provisions, supplies, and also gold as a form of internal tribute. It was a cyclical, orderly system where each tribe contributed with honor and a sense of belonging. Solomon did not exploit the people. He involved them in the project of a prosperous kingdom, as if all were part of the Temple of Solomon. This principle is extremely relevant today. It is what Napoleon Hill would call organized thought around a definite purpose. Each tribe had its role. Each contribution was part of a larger structure. Just like in a company or family, where every part works in synergy to generate lasting abundance. The secret here is the organization that sustains the vision. The gold that came from the people was not wasted. It was reinvested in the greatness of a nation built on wisdom. This contribution also created a cycle of trust. The people saw the results: temple, luxury, monumental projects, justice in courts, and lasting peace. Giving to the king was not a loss, but a privilege. And that is how wealth that crosses generations is built. But Solomon still had bigger plans. And to achieve them, he needed to move the economy like no other king had done before. Solomon did not accumulate wealth just to accumulate. He moved it. And one of the greatest examples was the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem, a sacred work rich in details and covered in gold. It was not just a place of worship. It was the visible expression of the covenant between God and the people, a symbol of divine blessing. It took years of work involving thousands of artisans, architects, and workers. This construction activated the entire economy of Israel, creating flow, employment, tribute circulation, and expanding influence. Here we see a fundamental principle of financial planning with spiritual vision. Solomon took the resources that Putes kiss, only ruby kiss, has the luxurious texture that glides, unsmooths. And Amiz came in and channeled them into projects that multiplied value. He was not an accumulator. He was a strategist. Napoleon Hill would say that wealth needs purpose to stay alive. The gold invested in the temple not only glorified Jerusalem, it inspired nations. The Temple of Solomon became a spiritual and economic center. Its greatness attracted leaders, faithful, and merchants. This intelligence to move resources with purpose is rare. Many earn, few build. Solomon built for eternity. And with that, he left a legacy that spread like light over neighboring peoples. But the secret was not only in the great works, it was also in how he managed every coin that entered the royal coffers. Solomon's prosperity was not disorganized. On the contrary, it was supported by a meticulous and efficient administrative system. He established regional supervisors, resource controllers, warehouse managers, and treasury administrators. Every tribute, every tax, every contribution was recorded and directed wisely. This economy of Israel in Solomon's time worked like a well-adjusted body. Nothing was wasted. Everything had purpose. Prosperity was maintained because internal order was respected. This level of organization represents one of the pillars of financial wisdom in the Bible. Solomon understood that blessing does not depend only on receiving, but on knowing how to manage. Napoleon Hill stated, "Failure is almost always a consequence of poor organization." Solomon lived the opposite: clear organization, structured vision, leadership with purpose. He understood the principle of stewardship. Every talent, every gold, every good was part of a system that had to ser honored in order to multiply. Imagine if the same care Solomon had with the kingdom's treasures was applied to personal finances today. How much waste would be avoided? How much more purpose would enter spending, investments, and choices? True wealth is not just about how much comes in, but about how much is preserved, multiplied, and directed. And this ability to manage details prepared him for something even more legendary. Among the many mysteries surrounding Solomon's reign, there is one that fuels legends to this day: the famous mines of King Solomon. According to ancient traditions and indirect records, Solomon may have had access to secret gold deposits hidden in remote regions. Although archaeology has not confirmed all these stories, the volume of gold received during his reign suggests something beyond the ordinary. It's as if there were hidden treasures revealed only to those with the vision to find them. This possibility deeply connects with the idea that wealth is where few dare to look. Solomon, with his wisdom, knew where to dig, literally and spiritually. Napoleon Hill would say, "The greatest treasures in life are hidden in non-obvious places." Many walk past gold every day because they don't recognize it. But Solomon, he saw beyond the surface. He sought what others ignored. That's why he found what others never saw. The mines of Solomon, real or symbolic, teach a timeless principle. There are riches that only reveal themselves to those who search deeply. And it is not just physical gold, but ideas, talents, connections, and opportunities hidden, waiting for those who decide to dig with faith, discipline, and intelligence. And there was a place where this gold shone like nowhere else. Under Solomon's reign, ancient Jerusalem became something the world had never seen, a city where gold was as common as stones. As stated in 2 Chronicles 1:15, it was the visible reflection of a reign aligned with wisdom, vision, and favor. The streets, temple utensils, palaces, everything gleamed. But this abundance was not ostentation. It was the expression of a people led by a man who understood the true value of spiritual and material wealth when balanced. Solomon knew that material wealth needs to walk with reverence, so the abundance of gold in Jerusalem did not come with chaos, but with order, with purpose, with construction. Napoleon Hill said, "Wealth is the natural consequence of a disciplined and organized mind." And what Solomon did was exactly that, turning his capital into a mirror of the invisible greatness built inside him. Jerusalem shone not just because of gold, it shone because of the vision behind it. Seeing gold spread throughout the streets reminded the people they were living something extraordinary. Every corner of the city was a reminder of the covenant with God, the fulfilled promise of wisdom, and the materialization of everything Solomon had built first within himself. But the city was not the only reflection of his prosperity. It was actually the stage for something even deeper, a clear sign that wisdom attracts wealth when connected with purpose. For Solomon, gold was not just a valuable good, it was a visible symbol of divine blessing. In his time, material prosperity was not seen as greed, but as a reflection of God's favor, especially when accompanied by justice, wisdom, and leadership. The luxury of the temple, the details of the palace of Solomon, and the abundance of resources were not merely human achievements. They were testimonies of a life guided by spiritual principles. To prosper was to obey. To prosper was to honor. Napoleon Hill taught that success is built upon purpose and wisdom. The Bible, on the other hand, reinforces that happy is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. For wisdom is more precious than gold, Proverbs 3:13-14. Solomon understood this secret. That's why he was able to unite the invisible with the visible, faith with action, mind with matter, the sacred with the strategic. And this made him incomparable. His wealth was not just accumulation, it was a message from heaven to earth. When people looked at Jerusalem and saw its grandeur, they recognized something beyond human planning. They recognized a God who honors those who ask for wisdom. They recognized the result of a life built on purpose, honor, and covenant with the eternal. And the most impressive thing is that this principle remains active today. But Solomon didn't just receive riches. He was also sought for something rarer than gold. Solomon was not only a receiver of wealth, he was an exporter of wisdom. Leaders, merchants, and kings crossed deserts just to hear his rulings, seek his advice, or witness his justice. One of the most emblematic episodes is the judgment of the two mothers, where he reveals the true mother with an unexpected and insightful sentence. This kind of wisdom was so rare, it became more valuable than any precious metal. Napoleon Hill wrote, "The world makes room for those who know what they want and are willing to pay the price." Solomon was that man. His mind was so well trained that he could turn doubts into clarity, conflicts into solutions, questions into paths. This made him indispensable, and the world rewards the indispensable. That is why he received gifts, tributes, and gold, not just for being king, but for being a source of direction. Wisdom that attracts wealth is wisdom that solves problems. Today, this principle remains alive. When you become someone who delivers answers, who serves with excellence, who guides with truth, people naturally want to walk with you. It is the law of value, and Solomon mastered this law with mastery. But his influence did not stop at wisdom. It extended to the most subtle and powerful field of all, the spiritual. Solomon's wealth was not limited to gold and precious stones. He possessed something no other king of the time could replicate: spiritual authority. His influence went beyond the throne. It touched consciences. He was recognized as a wise man, but also as someone who walked with God. The Proverbs of Solomon and the book of Ecclesiastes reveal a deep soul who understood life's cycles, the value of time, and the power of thought. As Proverbs 23:7 says, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he." This spiritual dimension of his leadership made him magnetic. It was not only the shine of the Temple of Jerusalem that attracted crowds, but the light of understanding flowing from him. It was the kind of presence that generates reverence. Napoleon Hill would say that true success is born when the mind aligns with something greater than itself. Solomon lived exactly like that. And that is why, even centuries later, his words still echo in the minds of those who seek to live with purpose. When you develop your inner life with as much care as you seek external prosperity, you become unshakable. Solomon was the representation of the union between power and presence. His name became, increasingly, a beacon to peoples. His gold shone. But it was his wisdom that illuminated. And even with so much wealth, the most striking was yet to come. The legacy? Time passed, kingdoms changed, but Solomon's name remains. He is remembered not only as the richest man in the Bible, but as the king who united wisdom, purpose, and wealth in a timeless way. His legacy is not just in the gold he amassed, but in the words he left, the judgments he made, the alliances he built, the projects he realized. Solomon lives through the impact he generated, an impact that crossed generations, religions, and continents. Napoleon Hill said, "The only wealth that endures is that which is born from the mind and spirit." Solomon lived this truth. He did not just sit on the throne of Solomon. He founded a success model that still inspires leaders, entrepreneurs, educators, and dreamers. His name became synonymous with greatness. And what he built, the Temple of Solomon, alliances with kings like Hiram of Tyre, his relationship with the Queen of Sheba, all this echoes today as marks left by someone who understood the time he lived in. This is the true treasure, to live so aligned with biblical wisdom and the laws of prosperity that your life becomes a beacon. Solomon did not seek just wealth. He sought understanding. And because of that, he received everything. This is the key. And perhaps now, it's time for you to decide what legacy you will also leave. We have reached the end of this journey through the wisdom and wealth of King Solomon, but the invitation that remains is for this reflection to continue alive inside you. Understanding that true prosperity is born from the encounter between a deep purpose and a disciplined mind can transform your reality from the inside out. Living and feeling this truth intensely is the first step so that success ceases to be a distant wish and becomes an inevitable achievement. If this content touched your heart, like this video and share your voice here in the comments. right? The phrase, "I choose to transform my mind to build wealth." Thus, you commit to walking a journey of growth that no one can take away from you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep receiving teachings that elevate your mind and spirit toward financial freedom. Remember, always, true wealth is built first in the invisible, in your thoughts, your choices, your commitment. Solomon's wisdom shows that when you master yourself, the world opens doors that seemed closed forever. Now, it's your turn. Go forward with courage and faith and transform your destiny.